The night had stretched long, but he continued stalking across an open field. He has been walking for 3 days, stopping only to drink from the stream or to tend to the blisters that have crept across his feet. Perhaps the village merchant sent him the wrong way. Seemed unlikely, though. The man was terrified. Kazan had thrown him through the stall, smashed his head through the table, demanded to know who had bought the salvaged armor. The merchant was lucky Kazan had let him live. Should this end up a fool's errand, that decision will certainly be overturned. The thin haze of early morning mist gives way and reveals another village, surrounded by farmland. The sun peeks furtively over the crops. This must be the place. The hardest working farmers tend to their fields silently, barely raising their heads as he walks past them. These men are not the imposters. They work the land, same as they always have, racing the sun to take their harvests before the heat can oppress. He stops next to one. Where are they? The man points to a stable near the center of the village. Kazan nods. Voices the barest of acknowledgements and continues walking. From this distance, Kazan can make out only vague shapes of men. He strides in their direction. As they come into focus, hate boils up inside Kazan. The men sit in chairs, empty jugs by their hands, sleeping gracelessly, their stomachs filled with gains extorted from their own. The smaller of the men still wears a kusasari around his waist, even as he sleeps. The larger one wakes as he stomps towards them, fumbles for a weapon, finds only one of the jugs. He holds it up as if to hide behind it. Without hesitation, Kazan strikes both the jug and the man's head with his kanabo, shattering them both instantly. The smaller one comes to and falls to his knees, immediately apologizing, begging for his life. Seeing this man in the armor of his fallen brothers, a cruel mockery of the purpose he had proudly committed his life to, creates a pit in Kazan's stomach. He lashes out, not once, like with the first one. He lashes out over and over. There is no grace in these strikes. He strikes aggressively, sloppily, across the body, the head, the legs. He hears screams as women and children wake and come out of their homes. And he stops. As he stops, he realizes the voice he hears screaming loudest is his own. He strips the armor from the formless, broken mass below him and places it in a bag and begins walking back. The farmers, who looked up briefly from their back-breaking work, return their focus to the soil. Perhaps his reputation had preceded him, or perhaps they had been tipped off. But this time, they were ready for him. The river, upon which this village sat, usually rushing and vibrant, seemed almost as if it sat still, holding its breath. Dark clouds hung on the horizon the entire day, refusing to approach, waiting for some resolution. Nearly a dozen men, dressed in broken and incomplete sets of armor, some armed with swords, others with plows and hoes, stand in a crooked line in front of him. They stand aggressively, but awkwardly, their confused stances betraying their inexperience. Kazan plants his feet across the river from them, grips his kanabo firmly, lowers it to his waist, and waits. Stares through his mask at the men. Waits. They rush him, disorganized, terrified. He fells them one by one. No wasted movement. Their attacks do not touch him. One after another, they run up against his weapon and crumble, bleeding, in the water. He stands there long after they have fallen, feet still planted. Around his ankles, the river begins to flow. 11 tendrils of crimson stretch down the river. The clouds finally crack open as cold, heavy rain sets in. Then, suddenly, pain. His calf muscle twitches as he feels cold metal pierce a small gap in his leg plates. He turns. A boy, perhaps 18, stands there, his face resolute. No stolen armor, no stolen weapon. Tears dot his cheeks, obscured by rain, but he shows no fear. The boy pulls the rake from Kazan's leg and raises it, mimicking the stance of a true samurai. Kazan grabs the head of the rake, squeezes. He feels hot blood run down his wrist as it plants in his palm. He stares the boy down, but the boy does not wince. "Die, Oni!" "Oni?" The word shakes him. "Me? Why would this boy call me Oni?" He feels that familiar feeling beginning to bubble deep within his chest again, like it did with the imposters. He tears the rake from the boy's hand, tosses it in the river. "Leave, boy. Call me that again, and you'll die like they did." Shuzo holds up a book in front of Kazan. Kazan squints at its cover, trying to make sense of the strange characters on it. "I found this in my son's belongings." "Is it from the foreigners?" Yes." Kazan sneers and turns away. "Why would you allow such a thing in your home?" He was hiding it from me, Kazan. His friends have been trying to learn their language, to work with them, trade with them. What next? Will he want to leave with them? Go abroad?" Shuzo tosses the book behind him in disgust. "I've heard a group of the traders are circumventing the Shogun's tariffs, falsifying records, bringing in more than allowed, and moving the surplus at night. Something needs to be done about this." Kazan stares into his teacup, deep in thought. Shuzo has always been a reliable source, a friend even at times. But trade with foreigners? What did he know about that? "What would you have me do, Shuzo?" Shuzo shrinks back, nervous. I'm just telling you what I heard. Someone needs to do something." The late summer sun hangs lazily over Nagasaki. Kazan stands on the shore, watching the ships of the foreign trading company dock in Dejima. The workers move at a frenetic pace, loading and unloading the ships, eager to work after months of waiting. Clerks zip from place to place, counting and recording inventories. To the untrained eye, it seems chaotic, unknowable. But Kazan has been training his eye. One ship in particular stuck out. While the others would dock, unload, load, and dock, one stayed longer than the others. And he was sure he saw it unload and load twice. Once at day and once at night. And it didn't leave. Perhaps everyone was too busy to pay it any mind. Perhaps nobody wanted to be the one who raised the issue. Perhaps they were all in on it. Kazan thinks of Shuzo's son, so enthusiastic to learn about the foreigners. He thinks of his own son, whose own interest waned in the way of the sword after his injury. Would he one day be seduced by this way of life as well? Kazan looks at his hand and realizes it's balled into a tight fist, his knuckles pale and stiff. If these men are criminals, they will face justice tonight. Kazan trudges through the barren, rocky floors of this strange realm. He tries to focus on the muddled fragments of his memory, about himself, about his family, about his country. But the fog shifts and churns, and his memories too shift and churn, never feeling real or complete. He knows he is following something, or chasing it, perhaps, but he does not know what it is. It's been hours, maybe days, years. It's impossible to tell in this realm. But he knows he must catch what he is chasing. It will have answers. The fog thins ahead of him, and he sees a man on the ground, hurt, dragging his injured body away from him. Kazan accelerates, closing on the broken body. It wears armor. A samurai's armor. Another imposter, perhaps. As he nears, the man turns to face him, and Kazan freezes. The mask on this man's face. It is a mask of his father's face, but is battered and crushed. It looks just like his father did, barely recognizable but immediately identifiable. How? The man raises his hand and places it on the mask and begins to pull. The mask resists, stuck to his face. He screams in agony, the sound of flesh ripping. Kazan reaches out to stop him, grabs his arm, but it's too late. With a gruesome tear, the mask comes flying off. A black void. A prolonged scream emanates from the hole in its head. His father's voice, perhaps? He can't remember anymore. The fog encroaches again. The screaming finally stops. The man is gone. His father is gone. The moment replayed in his mind again and again. The briefest moment. A hesitation. It made no sense. The samurai, clearly superior in technique, hesitated. Kazan should be dead, but instead, he left an opening. He recalled striking the samurai, shattering his helmet, seeing his face, recognizing it. And now he looks at it, in the moment, right now, drained of all life. His father is dead, killed because he hesitated. As if he let Kazan win. Kazan turns, unable to bear the shame, stares at the ground behind him, at his hands, the hands that did not hesitate. His father had known it was him. Had I known it was my father, would I have hesitated? The shame worms and burrows its way through him. He knows he would not have hesitated. He fought to bring honor back to his name, to his household, and he would fight, will kill anyone to achieve that goal, kill anyone who stood in his way, kill his household to restore his household. It made no sense. He stands there for what feels like an eternity, trying to reconcile it. He cannot. Through his tears, he thinks he sees the ground shifting underneath him. No, not shifting. A fog of some kind. He blinks back the tears and turns around to see the fog has settled all around him, obscuring his father's body. He screams, waves his kanabo. He crawls over to where his father lay. But his father is no longer there. The fog recedes and disappears, and with it, his father.
Yaya reaches out with a wrinkled, trembling hand and places a white stone next to a cluster of Min's black stones. He could have placed it anywhere on the board, but he chose the worst possible option. He's making it look like he's trying to capture my cluster. It's not convincing. He wants me to win. 2 more near the cluster, and Min can capture a number of Yaya's stones. She ignores the bait altogether and places her black stone in a remote corner of the board. Min feels Yaya's crooked stare linger on her before he makes his next move. Another white stone near the cluster. Another stone ripe to be captured. Min wants to tell him, "Stop. I am 11 years old. I'm not a baby. I want to earn it." The sun is setting over the crowded street. This will probably be the last game before Father comes downstairs and gets her. An afternoon of losing game after game to the best Wei Chi player Min has ever known. Min ignores the cluster again, places another useless stone. Yaya ignores her actions, another offering near the cluster. The angry thoughts return. She sits there, drumming her fingers on the table, feeling the coarse stone scratch against her fingertips. Min has paid the price many times over for disrespecting her father. For talking back, ignoring his orders, being unkind. She feels like a freak for thinking respect has to be earned. But she has never been unkind to Yaya, not once. She plants a stone on the edge of the cluster, playing the game the way he wants. Yaya's frown curls into the slightest smile. He adds another stone to the offering. When the sun is gone behind the buildings, and Min tallies her first ever win against her Yaya, Father steps out from the apartment building like clockwork. He watches, arms crossed, and Yaya gives Min a loving pat on the head. Happy birthday, Min Min. Her footsteps echo across the empty classroom. She didn't want to say anything to Teacher Leo in front of the other kids. "What's the problem, Min?" Teacher Leo rubs his temples as he sorts his papers. "Sir, my parents taught me to mind my own business and not concern myself with how others behave. But I have to tell you, schoolmate Chen has been cheating." Teacher Leo stops moving his papers. She has his attention. "Excuse me?" "Chen paid an older student for the answers to the last exam. I think he's been doing it for a while. That's why his grades are so high." Teacher Leo scoffs, shakes his head. "What is the matter, sir?" "I suppose you cheat as well, Min." A chill crosses her heart. "I've never cheated, sir." "No? Your grades are even better than Chen's. How do you explain that?" It's like talking to an alien. "Because I study, sir. I work hard." Teacher Leo is standing now, putting his papers in his briefcase. "Look, the Gaokao is just a few years away. Every one of your classmates wants to do well. Their futures depend on it." "I don't think I understand what you're saying, sir." He rubs his temples again. "I'm saying your parents are right." The bell rings the hour. Min leaves, holding her books close, eager for the day that she will never have to go to school again. "You still play Reign of Kaiju?" May's words have a serrated edge to them. A day of team building for the Laser Bears, and Min still feels like the new girl. The team's eyes are on her, waiting for her to say the right answer. "You mean you don't?" This was not the right answer. May puts her boba on the table and it lands with a thud. "No, I don't. I play the game that gets me paid." "You mean you don't make time for any other games?" Again, not the right thing to say. May shakes her head. "She doesn't get it, Wunling." Wunling calmly waves away May's simmering anger. "Min, that 10-hour training session yesterday, that was a normal day. That's what we do to win matches and titles and sponsorships. This, right here, drinking boba and chatting, this is a day where we fall behind. Anytime we do anything besides play Nebula Arc, we fall behind. Min looks over at Lon and Dayu as they sip their boba with downturned eyes and fidget in their seats. She only met them last week, and she thought they were awkward, standoffish. But now she gets it. They just want to play. Wanling is still talking. Do you get what we're saying? If you're ready to commit to the Laser Bears, that means you have to commit to Nebula Arc. There won't be any time for anything else, including our okay. For as long as Min could remember, Reign of Kaiju was there. She watched the cartoon as a kid. Her binder of kaiju carts was still in the closet of her old room. She made her own hero costume. She doodled Rocco in her notebooks. And once she started playing the MOBA, she never wanted to stop. She still doesn't want to stop. Wanling's hand is on hers. It's okay to say no. Some join a team thinking it's just a game. They never last long. Others go too far. They just grind non-stop, push themselves past their limits until they burn out. This life is not for everyone. But you are a great Nebula Defender. You can help us take the championship title from the Shock Demons. And we can set you up for life. Life. Min thinks about her parents, sitting in the same apartment for over 20 years. She thinks about the Dinoid Stuffy, the one she played with when she was a baby, still sitting at the bottom of her backpack. Maybe you need some time to think about it. Min grips Wanling's hand, just tight enough to show her strength. No, I don't need any time at all. Min turns her back to the casket as it is lowered into the ground. Her mother gives her hand a squeeze, and together they look up at the cloudless sky. She brought the game board with her when Yaya was admitted to the hospital. She knew it would be the last time they played. Beneath her jeans, she wore her Nebula Arc leggings. Min needed a little help from Shining Lion that day. His eyes barely open, his breathing ragged. He was still the best Wei Chi player she had ever met. He only made one mistake in between coughs that opened him up to defeat. But Min didn't take it. She made herself every bit as vulnerable as him and congratulated her Yeye when he won. He asked for another game, and she wiped away a tear. She knew her father was waiting in the hallway and would not enter the room until she left. She watches her father place yellow and white chrysanthemums on Yeye's grave. Time folds in on itself, and Min sees herself in the future, standing before a grave, hands tightened around her own bouquet of yellow and white mums. She never thought she'd see him standing at her door. Father, hi. He's holding a thick envelope with the home address written on it. Min's stomach sinks. This is not going to be the happy reunion she thought it would be. Do you know anything about this? Father drops the envelope at Min's feet, spilling a handful of banknotes. Min bends down to clean her father's mess. You wouldn't have accepted it if you knew it was for me. But we would accept an anonymous donation? We are not a charity. Everything okay? Wanling and the others are still eating breakfast. Min steps into the hallway and closes the door. Father's face is a taut sneer. Please, Father, take it. Let me help you. You'll need that money when you decide to grow up. You don't get it, do you? This is my job, and I'm good at it. I'm happy. You're lying. I can see it in your eyes. This life you're living doesn't make you happy, and it never will. All you're doing is... Min turns just as her door opens. Wunling and May are there, beaming smiles and outstretched hands. Good morning. Are you Mr. Feng? Min watches, stunned, as her friends introduce themselves and take turns shaking Father's hand. This can't be happening. May gives Min's shoulders a tight squeeze. We just wanted to let you know what a wonderful daughter you raised. I've never met anyone so dedicated or diligent or kind. Father opens his mouth to speak, but Wunling is quicker. Your daughter helped us become 3-time champions. When we win our next championship, we'll have the world record. I'm sure you're very proud. Please, come in. May is motioning to the door. We were just finishing breakfast. There's plenty left if you're hungry, and perhaps you'd like to see some of our awards. Min waits for her father to put them all in their place. He doesn't. His eyes are on her, and she knows he's waiting for her to invite him in. She'd never seen his eyes shine like this before. Would you like to come in? This is it, the morning of the final. By the end of the day, I'll be holding my 4th trophy. The late nights will have been worth it. Maybe then the nightmares will stop. Blink. City traffic is the worst. Min has no patience for it. If we're not at the stadium in an hour... Min weaves across lanes, avoiding the slowpokes taking up space in the passing lane. We're going to make it. Blink. The laser bearers are quiet in the back of the van. They don't think I can handle it. We wouldn't be in this mess if the driver they hired didn't flake on us, or if any of them bothered learning to drive. Blink. We'll see who can handle what today. If we win the final, it'll be because of me, not them. The world record will sit in my room, not theirs. They don't have the... Blink. Min! That was May. The others are crying, screaming as the van grinds against the median. Sparks fly up from the driver's door. Her instincts kick in. Min steers hard to the right. The tires squeal, the girls scream. The sound is excruciating. Min looks over just in time to see a black SUV coming at them like a bullet. And somewhere in the dark recesses of the unconscious, Feng Min dreams of her grandfather, of playing Weiqi, of kaiju. Min finishes her beer and leaves the counter. Drinking allows her to focus on certain details. Like each drop of water floating in the air, creating spring mist that catches the neon light of the signs looming large above her. Even at night, there is no darkness in the city. But drinking does something else to Min. She looks ahead at the haze, watching herself walk down the sidewalk from within. She is not Feng Min. She is someone trapped inside Feng Min, controlling her, seeing what she sees. The distance gives her room to breathe. She takes an awkward lurch forward, and she feels the ligaments around her knee twist. Her knee, the last reminder of the accident. It never lets her forget. Her friends screaming. Her cries of mourning echoing through the hospital hallway. The beginning of the end. Someone rushes past Min and elbows her hard. Roll away, loser. She turns, fist clenched, ready to fight, but the world turns faster than she does. And as she falls to the sidewalk, The word echoes through her mind. Loser. 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 She lands on her side and her head hits the asphalt with a crack. I lost everything. And every day I lose a little bit more. Game over. Start again. If only it were that easy. If only she could just start again, change things. Never lose again. Everything goes dark. The blood on the sidewalk, the mist in the air. Just close your eyes now. Things will be different tomorrow.
Arcus, 9966. I've discovered more stories by Bara that feature an esoteric character called the Prisoner. Like the other stories, the Prisoner is trapped in a dark and strange dimension from which he is desperately trying to escape. Bara's stories, especially the ones written later on in his career, focus heavily on this dimension which he calls the horror. He describes it as the dimension where all horror originates. An interesting idea, but flawed in so many ways. Arcus, 9967. The Prisoner can experience memories and stories extracted from a fog-like substance. After years of searching for a way out, he finds the answers he's looking for in the recorded memories found amidst the ruins of a castle. The memories are captured on an old vinyl record, which he plays on a gramophone in front of a wall of crazy. He listens to the scratchy record and soon discovers that the way out is through the darkest and most dangerous place in the horror: the Void. I've read about the Void in the works of several authors now. Some believe it contains a way out. Others believe it's all a trick to get the Prisoner to jump out of the frying pan and into the fire. I'm not sure which stories to believe. It could be that all versions are true in some way. Perhaps there is a way out for those who know how to find it, but for those who don't, the Void ends up being a place of greater suffering and torment. It's hard to know which story or stories to trust. Arcus, 9968. I'm still missing critical parts to the story, and I'm not exactly sure if there's anything to be learned by the Prisoner's journey through the Void. If, in the very least, I knew the Prisoner had escaped, that would be something. That would give me the impetus to act. But as it stands, I'm still not sure how the story ends. Arcus, 9969. There is no such thing as fiction. Everything is based on some reality somewhere. Arcus, 9970. I found a series by Bara called Tales from the Horror. Hundreds of stories about people trapped in the horror, most of them trying to escape, others acting as servants of the darkness. I found one story detailing how an unlikely squad of survivors created an opening into the void, with a sequence of symbols discovered on a scroll. They carved the symbols into a strange growth so that it exploded and destabilized the realms, creating a small rupture into the void. There must be a version of this story where the symbols are described in greater detail. If I could somehow discover the correct sequence, I would have most of what I need to attempt an escape. I am close now, closer than I've ever been. It's hard to believe I've made it this far. The Magnificent Maurice, 1. They call me Maurice. The Magnificent Maurice. Mr. Shelby, the farmer, started calling me Magnificent soon after I was born. Not because I'm special or spectacular or anything like that, but because he thought I was weak and scrawny and good for nothing like a cart without wheels. For some reason, he swore to his wife that I was cursed, and that bad things had been happening to him and his farm ever since I arrived. He figured if he called me Magnificent, he'd trick some buckethead into buying me at the country fair. I remember figuring I was different than the other colts, not because I made bad things happen, but because I could make things happen. And I could make things happen just by thinking about them. I didn't realize it at first, but anyone who showed interest in buying me and taking me from my home changed their mind because I told them to do so with my thoughts, and with my thoughts alone. I even used my thoughts to convince someone to tell Farmer Shelby what a fine horse I was, and that he should keep me with my family. But that little trick didn't work. Farmer Shelby saw right through the ruse. He somehow suspected I was behind his bad luck in selling me, and he gave me such a lashing every night, yelling at me and calling me a dumb, ill-bred, good-for-nothing animal. Eventually, I didn't have the strength to think anymore. He beat it all out of me. I was in so much pain I could barely stand, and all I could think about was not getting lashed again. But that was okay, because I was so bruised and broken up that no one believed I was magnificent, despite the big red sign above my head. I guess it kind of worked out in that way. At least for a little while. But let's move on from that cloudy moment in my life and come back to it a little later. What I want to say is I'm old now, and I'm stuck in a faraway world that feels like every scary place I've ever heard about all rolled into one. I have definitely lived and seen and experienced things no horse has ever seen, and I'll tell you, despite all the manure shoveled my way throughout my days, I've only made 1 or 2 friends that have made the suffering bearable. And to be sure, it is one such friend who wants to write the story of my life. She believes that what I have been through and what she has been through could someday help someone going through a similar situation. To be honest, I don't know if all this will be helpful. What I do know is I hadn't talked for like an eternity before I met her, and once we started talking, I just couldn't shut my trap. Kind of like an endless geyser. I guess I didn't realize how much I had to say, or how much I had kept bottled inside, or how much I needed to talk, and that talking alone had lifted such a heaviness from my heart that I felt like I could fly. It's great to have a friend. Especially one who doesn't judge or interrupt and who listens with the heart and not the head. A friend who understands you, believes in you, and who calls you magnificent and means it, truly means it. I may not know much, but I know this. One good friend makes all the difference. Tales from the Horror, Through the Void Darkly, 2. The fortress tank was littered with burnt cadavers. twisted limbs reached out like black gnarled trees against the blue light seeping through a hole in the metal ceiling. Scorch marks scarred the floor, and on the wall, Haley read, "No exit," written in blood. She stared at the words for a long, pensive moment. Then the squad assembled around her, asking if she could pick up anything with her abilities. She shrugged and inched closer to the bodies, feeling a strange heaviness in the air. She could sense there was something unnatural and unknown still lingering about the corridor. Cautiously, Haley inched toward a crushed head on the metal grate and froze mid-step when she felt her arms prickle. She let her foot fall slowly and fixed her gaze on the charred eye sockets, searching for something, anything that could help understand what had happened to the previous crew. When nothing appeared, she raised her gaze and started when a ghostly soldier suddenly flashed before her eyes. Composing herself, she watched the soldier scramble down the dark corridor, with entrails wiggling out of his lacerated stomach like giant worms. Sam sensed Haley was distraught and asked her what she was seeing. She turned to face him but tumbled backward and gasped at the sudden vision of gas-soaked soldiers going up in flames. The flames erupted and melted fat and flesh like butter until everything dissipated into plumes of swirling blue smoke. Clambering to her feet and steadying herself, Haley breathed deeply and turned to the squad with a bleak expression. She said nothing for a long moment. She debated whether she should share her visions with the rest of the squad, but she wasn't sure if what she had seen could be trusted. It could have been a memory, or it could have been a hallucination triggered by the void. Finally, she admitted she wasn't sure about what she had seen, and told the squad she needed more time to investigate. So saying, she made her way to a pile of mangled bodies, grabbed a charred hand, and closed her eyes. Silencing her mind, she focused all her senses on the moment, but nothing came to her. "The whispers," Jaden said, approaching his stepsister. "They've stopped. It's like the tank is somehow shielding us from the outside." Haley opened her eyes and regarded him. Then she released the lifeless hand. "If that's true," she said flatly, "what happened to them?" She gestured toward the scattered bodies with an uneasy sigh. "Good question," Natasha commented as she scanned the massive tank for signs of life. "Looks like we'll be staying here for a bit. Doesn't bother me. I've been in worse places back home." "Speak for yourself, Nat," Jen shook her head. "This is a death trap. We should look for another place." "What other place?" Derek asked. "There is no other place. Let's clear the rooms and make this can of hell pleasant." "Pleasant?" Mel questioned. "Am I the only one smelling that?" "Smelling what?" Dwayne smirked. Mel turned to Dwayne. She wanted to smack the glasses off his face for downplaying the stench. "What do you mean, smelling what? Barbecued humanity, that's what." Dwayne shrugged. "Just breathe through your mouth." Mel shook her head. "I don't want to breathe through my mouth." "Well, I'm sure Claudine will think of something with her flowers." "Very funny, Ash." Claudine's face hardened. "I'm not collecting air fresheners here, or are you that clueless?" And she shoved Ash, who was laughing, into the hard metal wall with a resonating clang. "Knock it off," Mahan snapped. "Let's split up. Check the rooms for survivors. See if we can find something useful like medical supplies." The squad agreed, with nods and whispers, and soon dispersed throughout the tank. At this point, Mahan motioned for Haley and Jaden to follow him, as he picked his way through the dark corridor with his flashlight. After what seemed like a lifetime, they found a control room lined with generators that had somehow been grafted to the wall. Nearby, there was a container filled with a strange, bubbling black substance. From the container, a thick red hose extended to the generators. Mahan scrutinized the container, the generators, and the dashboard. It seemed like the black fluid somehow fueled the generators, and the generators somehow powered the fortress. He wasn't exactly sure how this makeshift energy system worked, but he had seen the technology before in other realms. For a moment, he had the faint hope that the generators and the tank had been designed to help them survive the void. "They're similar to the other generators," Jaden observed as he passed his finger along the controls until he found a small window covered in grime and other substances he didn't want to think about. Mahan approached a generator and tried to activate it, but nothing happened. He removed a panel and tinkered with wires like he had done countless times before. Within moments, the generator sparked, belched, and grumbled to life as a light bulb flickered on and off, casting a soft orange glow in the room. "We've got power," Haley smiled. "Thanks to..." Jaden's words trailed away as the ground shook beneath his feet and a deep, sonorous roar came from outside. With a great sense of urgency, he used his sleeve to clear the grime from the window. As he stared out into the void, a shudder ran through him and the blood drained from his face. "What is it?" Haley asked. When Jaden didn't answer, Mahan turned towards Haley, then Jaden, and asked, "What is it? What's out there?" Still, he didn't answer. Haley and Mahan exchanged a worried look as the world shook again. "Come see this," Jaden finally stammered. His voice came out in a thin croak, and he felt his nerves growing taut as he fought down a surge of panic. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was unlike anything he had ever seen in the other realms. Staggering and helping one another, Haley and Mahan stepped behind Jaden. All three looked through the small window in open-mouthed disbelief.
Caleb zips round his mother's back, rolling a wooden wheel on a makeshift metal axle. In one move, she steps off the sewing machine's pedal and reaches for the door. "Caleb, you take that thing outside right now!" She cracks the door, and the boy bursts out full speed. He skips, left, right, left, left, right, left, emulating the sound of a horse in gallop. He storms down the road, slows when he hears a familiar voice. Father and another man raising their voices. From around the corner, his father marches out, almost crashing into Caleb. "What are you doing out here, my lad?" "Ma told me to take it outside." "No work again today?" His father sighs, smiles at him. No work today." "And what about you? Did you do your reading?" "No, Pop. I wanted you to read to me." How about this? Let's head home and you read to me. Pop can't read to you forever." The axe falls again, but the log does not split. Despite the biting cold, sweat drips from Caleb's brow. Put your back into it, Mabukel. Caleb glances at his father, exasperated. He looks at his father's own back, bent and broken from years of grueling labor. He bites his tongue. Caleb takes one more swing and finally splits the log. He throws the pieces under his arm and takes his father's arm with the other, leads him into the home. His mother lies in bed. He checks her forehead. The fever's finally breaking. She's sleeping peacefully, so he tucks her in and feeds some wood to the fire. Fills the hot water beside the bed, adjusts the copper rod he set up to warm her blanket. Caleb, can you grab something for me? Yes, Pop. Under the bed. There. Leather. Caleb looks, finds it, drags out a light leather apron, loops across its belt. All empty, save for one. A rusty old wrench. What happened to your tools, Pop? I sold them years ago, my lad. Weren't doing me no good out here. Better to feed you than have them rotten under the bed. Caleb passes his fingers over the wrench. You gonna sell this one too? Nah, you take it. We'll teach you how to do some things. Maybe by the time you're a man, things will change around here. Besides, ain't nobody gonna buy it anyway. Hang on. I had it working not 5 minutes ago, sir. Bayshore looks down his nose at the strange device. How many men do you suppose this contraption could replace on the line? Caleb stops oiling the chamber and thinks for a moment. Not sure. Could be a dozen. More important is that it never makes a mistake. Gives you the same result every time. Come inside, Mr. Quinn. Let's talk in here. Caleb follows his boss into a lavish office. He looks at the enormous desk with its miniature train and its glass globe. Desk probably costs more than everything Caleb owns. He slumps into the seat across the desk. Mr. Quinn, I think you're a bright young man, positively bursting with potential. I've stuck my neck out quite far keeping you in our employ. That's because I expect big things from you. I want you to think bigger. Sorry, sir. No need to apologize, young man. But we won't be buying this contraption, I'm afraid. Speak to Lee in the workshop. He'll set you straight. Caleb gets up, puts a hand on the spike planter. Actually, you can leave that here, young man. Head to Lee. Quick. Blood pours out of Bayshore's stomach, spills out onto his carpet. His face is a swollen, broken mess. He spits out a tooth, looks Caleb straight in the eye. You'll hang for this? It's enough to bring Caleb back from the rage that had subsumed him. He'd come in here to confront Bayshore. It had been months now of tactical encouragement, driving him to create new inventions, only to tell him they were impractical, all to keep the patents to himself. Sell them for thousands. Bayshore coughs, dribbles more blood onto the wound in his stomach, grabs onto the spike that is nailing him to his enormous desk, limply tugs at it, gives up. Caleb tries to form words, to tell Bayshore it isn't even about the money, but he can't find them. Even battered and beaten, bleeding on the floor, all Bayshore evokes is more fury. All those times he said how lucky Caleb was to even be hired, given his stock. All the times he said he was barking up the wrong tree. All just manipulation. Security finally breaks in the heavy oak door and slams Caleb's face down on the desk, ties him up. They've got the local doctor in tow, who's already tending to Bayshore. Caleb's face is close to Bayshore's, and now he's able to find words to whisper before he's hauled out. If this kills you, it'll be worth the gallows. You're kidding. They're just gonna let us free. Not free. But we can work time off our sentences. Just gotta bring in some bad guys. A guard cuffs them, one by one, and leads them out of their cells to the warden's office. They sit in the Spartan room, and the warden briefs them. A month off each your sentences for each man you bring in. I want them alive. Think of this as your penitence. What's to stop me from just going on the run? Caleb turns to Declan, looks him dead in the eye. That ain't how this is gonna go. The warden hands Caleb a paper. The three look at it intently. Rory slowly mouths the words on it. It's been slow going, but Caleb's reading lessons are starting to take. Colorado. Ain't that pretty far? Few days ride, take some horses, a few dollars for necessities along the way. Head out today. If this works, we'll see about getting you more men. Caleb commits everything on the page to memory, places the sheet in his pocket. The three rise from their seats, eager to get to work. Now, one more thing, Quinn. I had to pull a few strings, but I was able to get you this. The warden places his spike gun on the table. Declan looks at it and is barely able to stifle a laugh. Hell you call that, Chief? Death to Bayshore. The Hellshire gang rides behind him, uncharacteristically quiet, even Declan. It had been many days on the road, and they were exhausted. The mountain paths are unapologetic, but this has to be the place. The main street's empty. Bunch of them are at the local theater, which is raucous with laughter and song. Rest of them probably got reasons to hide. Caleb ties his horse at the local saloon, Rory and Declan close behind. They feel the weight of dozens of eyes as they enter the establishment. They sit at the table closest to the door. Rory looks at Caleb, his eyes pleading. Just one drink. Caleb closes his eyes and shakes his head. Business first. You folks visiting or just riding through? Caleb looks at the barkeep, a frail man with a pencil mustache. Just a quick stop, I hope. Maybe you can help make it quicker. He conjures the crumpled scrap of paper from his pocket. Rodrigo Sandoval. Skipped out of town on a debt. Bartender takes one look at the name on the poster, sees the massive weapon on Caleb's back, goes stark white. He gestures subtly to a table in the back. Caleb stands and approaches the table. Three men play cards, while the other two sit back in their chairs. Which one of you is Sandoval? A couple of the men reach for their guns, but they've already got Rory and Declan's pistols trained on their heads. None of them talk. No need for this to get bloody, fellows. Supposed to take him alive. The one in the middle leaps out of his chair and tries to tackle Caleb, tumbles over him clumsily, rolls to the floor and runs for the door. Rory and Declan let loose on the other men, killing them before they can even put a hand on their guns. Rodrigo barely makes it to the door before a terrible crack rings out. The spike protrudes through the front of his thigh and he screams in pain. A harsh jerk of the chain drags him to the floor. Declan turns to the barkeep, cash from the card game in hand. Don't suppose you got any victuals for the road? Caleb and Rory ride to the edge of town through the carnage and viscera, the radiance of a full moon their only light. They find an appropriate place. Quiet, nice view, small cactus growing nearby. Caleb hands Rory a shovel, and the two start digging at the hard, dry earth. The sun pokes over the horizon as they finish digging. Caleb places Declan's shattered, perforated body in the grave. They cover him and place a small marker on top, a pile of sturdy rocks. Rory coughs, perhaps from all the gunpowder, perhaps choking back tears. His voice comes out even smaller than normal. "Should we say something?" Caleb looks down at the fresh grave. Never was good with words. That was Declan's thing. The two stand in silence for a moment. Caleb counts in his head how many men they've lost. 7. No. 8. Since the Hellshire gang had grown, it was hard to keep track. Not anymore, though. Declan's body was the only one he could even find enough of to bury. A cool gust of wind passes over the site, pushing the last of the night's chill, making room for the sun to bake the earth again. A paper blows in, catches on Rory's leg. He grabs it, picks it up, tries his best to read it. "Hey, Chief, this say what I think it says?" Caleb reaches for the paper and reads the headline out loud. Henry Bayshore purchases Hellshire Penitentiary. Every muscle in his head starts to clench and burn. His hand trembles as he grips the paper, punching his thumb through the picture of Bayshore. "Saddle up. We're riding out."
My throat is hoarse from screaming. I pace my writer's room back and forth. I know its measurements intimately. The typewriter stares at me from atop the writing desk. The blank page in the roller mocks me. I'd throw that thing through the window if I could. I squeeze the clicker in my hand. The thing that saved a whole town and trapped me in this dark place. How many pages have I written since then? How many hells have I endured to bring the one perfect story to life? The one story that would help me escape and return to Alice. I remember Alice walking into the study, placing a cup of coffee next to the typewriter, kissing me on the cheek, saying goodnight. Alice. The memory is like sand on the beach being devoured by the tide. With each ebb and flow of the waves of time, I lose more and more of my past. Alice walking through the door with a bottle of champagne to celebrate my first book deal. Her eyes so full of pride. Her eyes. What color were her eyes? When the waves take away my last few grains of sand, when there's nothing left to remember, what will be left of me? I grasp at the grains of sand I still have. Alice, my books, my apartment in New York City, my vacation to Bright Falls, and Night Springs. Yes, I was a young, scrappy writer when I was hired to work on Night Springs. One of my first episodes was about a heroic escape. I put my characters through such danger, their escape felt so triumphant. Get to the typewriter, get to work. This is the one. I just need to remember the story exactly as I wrote it so long ago. Then I'll be free. The clack of the keys is a familiar refrain. It brings comfort and torment in equal measure. I type the name of the episode upon the blank page. Dead of Night. The decaying city crumbles behind them as they run through the forest. Their exodus from the city was not easy. The fog closed in on them. They had to get out. They were pursued by the very thing they had summoned. Only 4 of them had made it out alive. But home was still so far away, across realms, in another dimension, and all they could do was run. Eloise grips Darren's arm, holding it tight around her shoulder. The dread had hurt him badly, and he'll bleed to death if they don't find a way home. Adrian urges the group onward. Further into the forest, the trees grow thick around them, and Michelle yelps as a branch whips at her arm. The trees stand shoulder to shoulder, forcing the group down a single path through the forest. The ground quakes, and Eloise plants her feet. She's been carrying Darren for so long, and he is so heavy. Somewhere behind them, the dread bellows a hungry cry. It wants to feed on their misery, on their sorrow, on their souls. And it's getting closer. Alan Wake watches as his characters struggle for a way out. He can't see one. The trees stand shoulder to shoulder, flanking a path that ends in a wall of billowing fog, and the sight of it turns Alan's stomach. Keep them away from the fog, no matter what. Keep them away from the fog. Adrian gasps and points in the direction they came. A twisting, writhing silhouette blocks what little light remains in the sky. They all watch helplessly as the dread approaches, getting closer and closer, until... I sit back in my chair looking at the words on the page. It's always been a pain in the neck to format a script on a typewriter. But there it is. My episode of Dead of Night, just as I saw it. I remembered every detail of the script perfectly. The strangers who found themselves in a dead city in a world of eternal night, the crumbling ruins, the dread emerging from the ground, the chase, the forest, the wall of fog. The thought of the fog sends a shiver through me. I could remember all of it, all except for the ending. I clench my fists and look down in my lap. The ending. The ending. My senses come to life as I think back on my days on Night Springs. I can smell the cigarettes smoldering in the ashtrays. I can hear the thick, phlegmy coughs of the veteran writers as they sat around the table pitching ideas. I could feel the weight in the pit of my stomach, the tremble in my hands. I was the youngest in that room by far, but I was hungrier than they were. I was eager, desperate to make my mark. I remember sitting in the showrunner's office and during a round of notes, how it felt to not get the script perfectly right the first time. I remember I got notes about the ending. The ending. Did I struggle with the ending back then too? Is that why I'm struggling with it now? What I wouldn't give for something to read. Dog-eared, well-worn paperback. One that I would reread whenever I felt stuck. How often had I read that old thing? What was it called? I try to conjure the image of the book in my mind. It has no cover, only images of... And at that moment, it all comes back to me. The decaying city crumbles behind them as they run through the forest. Darren cries out in pain and clutches the bleeding wound in his side as Eloise pulls him down the forest path. The ground quakes and Adrian loses his footing, stumbling into Michelle, knocking them both into the dust and dirt. Alan watches and waits. Eloise and Darren come up against the wall of fog at the end of the path. They had run from the fog in the city. They look around for some other way out. The trees stand shoulder to shoulder. Michelle crawls along the dirt trying to find her glasses. Instead, she finds something that makes her scream, first in fear, and then in delight. They all gather around and marvel at the discovery. A book bound in flesh covered in ancient symbols of unknown origin. The dread's bellowing grows louder. Michelle flips through the book, squinting, trying to read the symbols. She has knowledge of the arcane. She knows the book can help them escape. She just has to find the right incantation and read it aloud, all without her glasses. Adrian gasps and points in the direction they came. A twisting, writhing silhouette blocks what little light remains in the sky. They all yell now, begging Michelle to read faster. Her fingers stop on a page. She doesn't know if it'll work, but she must try. She reads aloud the words, the language cutting through the air like rusty blades. As she speaks, a great blue orb appears around them, growing larger and larger until it explodes. And then... I did it. I remembered the ending of Dead of Night exactly as I had written it way back when. So why didn't it work? The script had ended with Michelle finding the book and reading the spell that sent them home. So why am I still here? Suddenly, I can smell cigarette smoke. And suddenly, I feel like a timid young writer again. The way the showrunner stubbed out his cigarette, the way he threw my script at me from across the desk. He called the ending a deus ex machina, said the book bound in flesh came out of nowhere. I hated the fact that he was right. He told me to try again, to make their escape mean something. I never felt so low as I did that day. So alone. Life before Alice was always so lonely. I remember the way Alice would sit next to me on the couch, listening. Not making suggestions, not soothing my ego, not stopping me from beating myself up about not being good enough to break through my writer's block. She would just sit there, with me, listening. I remember the way she would hold my hand. It was all she needed to do to calm me down, to slow down my racing heartbeat, ease the tightness in my chest, and open my mind to... I stopped dead in my tracks. Even now, Alice is helping me. I have the ending. I really have it this time. The decaying city crumbles behind them as they run through the forest. Eloise pulls Darren down the forest path, and he cries out, clutching the bleeding wound in his side. The ground quakes, and Adrian and Michelle stop each other from falling. They come to the end of the dark alley, and Alan quivers at the sight of the wall of black fog. The trees stand shoulder to shoulder. The dread bellows as it gets closer. Alan knows what he must do to finish the episode. It's the same ending that went on the air years ago. He had celebrated that night with his friends. Which friends? And he had felt 10 feet tall, an actual writing credit on Night Springs. Adrian gasps and points at the dread's twisting and writhing silhouette. They've tried to find any way out, but there is none. Except for the wall of fog. The showrunner had shaken my hand and flashed that crooked grin of his. It was the first time I really felt like a writer. Eloise takes Michelle's hand, and she takes Adrian's. Eloise helps Darren cross the threshold of the fog, and she follows. Then Michelle. Then Adrian. They walk through the fog and vanish from sight. The end. Almost. The dread slithers down the path, bellowing louder than ever. Alan grits his teeth. He's running out of time, and he knows it. The wall of fog is calling to him now. Cold sweat beads on his forehead. This must have been how Eloise, Darren, Michelle, and Adrian felt. Trapped, with only one way out. But where would that way lead? One last memory about his time on Night Springs came clear as a bell. He made sure the script ended on an ambiguous note. Where did the ominous fog lead? The real world? Or something worse altogether? Alan stands before the fog, trying to peer through. He knows he must act quickly. The dread will be upon him at any moment. But I have to be sure. I need a sign. The single speck of light flickers so suddenly, so brightly through the fog that Alan almost starts at the sight of it. A light in the dark. The light had always been there for him ever since Alice went missing in Bright Falls. The light had been his guide, his savior. And here it is again. Alan reaches out to touch the fog. It's warm and inviting, like Alice's hand is warm in his. His racing heartbeat slows down. The tightness in his chest relaxes. "Come on," she says with a smile. "Let's go for a walk." And for a brief moment, she's there. Alan can feel her next to him as he crosses the wall of fog. He feels the sun on his face. A miracle in itself. Tears of joy well up inside. It's too much. And it slips away. Alan slips away. And fog turns to shadows.
Tales from the horror, through the void darkly. 3. Out in the endless and chaotic void, Jaden stared at a gigantic eyeball with massive tentacles creeping toward the fortress tank. He shuddered when one of the tentacles grabbed a carcass of some nameless creature and held it in front of the dark retina. The eyeball seemed to be inspecting the carcass, when suddenly the retina opened to reveal curved and crooked teeth like twisted swords. "Oh, shit," he mumbled in disbelief and staggered backward. He quickly regained his balance, turned to Haley and asked, "What do we do? Did you see that thing? It's coming right for us." Haley observed the surreal giant eyeball through the small window and released a slow, measured breath. "I think I remember reading about it." She stared at the creature for a long moment, as if she were trying to unravel some long-forgotten mystery. "I read about it in one of the tomes we found. It's a creature of the abyss, one of the great giants. This one was called Igathul, and it's attracted to light, or fear. Or was it light and fear? Which one? I can't remember," she said, staring at the grotesque creature slowly approaching them. "I'm not sure which version of the story was right." "Let's imagine they all were." Mahan turned to the panel and yanked several levers to shut down the lights. But nothing happened. The generators didn't power down. The lights seemed to flicker and shine brighter just to spite him, and Igathul did not pause or hesitate in its steady advancement toward them. Thinking fast, Mahan turned and kicked the generators with all his strength. But again, the lights only surged and grew brighter, as though to continue to mock him. Then realizing he was kicking the wrong mechanism, Mahan lunged forward and smashed the containers holding the strange organic petrol connected to the generators. The glass shattered, and the reeking black fluid drained to the floor, with tiny fish-like things flopping over the ground. A moment later, the generators stopped jerking and chugging and belching. The lights flickered on and off, and slowly dimmed to complete darkness. Suddenly, Igathul froze, but the retina seemed fixated on them. At that instant, Haley felt Jaden's trembling shoulder next to hers. She nudged him slightly and whispered, "Stop shaking, JJ. We're not out of this yet. I'm trying." "Try harder." Mahan approached the small window. "I think it senses fear." Igathul edged closer, staring hard at them. Monstrous tentacles discharged glowing blue slime and slithered up and down the fortress tank like hungry eels. "JJ, please, calm yourself. It's goddamn Cthulhu. Don't tell me to calm myself." Haley released a calming breath. "Try not to think about it. Just close your eyes and think of sheep. Count sheep or something." Sheep? Jaden couldn't believe what he was hearing, but he listened to her suggestion and closed his eyes. In his mind's eye, he visualized sheep grazing in a peaceful meadow with a soft, calming melody he had once heard in an elevator. Then the elevator music stopped all at once. The sheep stopped eating and looked up to the sky as Igathul rose from the churning fog. With a terrible shriek, the horrible giant snatched all the sheep with its tentacles and crammed them into its hungry, salivating mouth, crushing skulls, bones, and bleeding heads. Instantly, Jaden's eyes snapped open. "Doesn't work. All I'm thinking about is—" Igathul interrupted him with a loud roar and proceeded to slam the ground with frenzied tentacles. Jaden stopped breathing and blinked as if he had just stepped into a morgue. All three stared at the monstrous creature, trying to understand what they were seeing. Igathul stopped slamming the ground and was motionless for a moment that felt like eternity. Then slowly, as the three of them watched in relief, Igathul turned and slithered away, munching on scrap and bones and cadavers as it moved through the endless wasteland. They stared after the creature as it faded into thick clouds of insects and shapeless bird things. After a long silence, Jaden released a nervous laugh. Mahan patted him on the back. "I guess we're lucky it's only attracted to the lights." Jaden turned to Haley. "Don't ever tell me to count sheep again." Haley's face broke into a smile, and she was just about to laugh when she heard strange things crying like newborn babies in the thick black muck that had drained from the containers. Jaden followed her very serious gaze and was nearly knocked over by the scene before him. He asked in a voice rising with mingled terror and panic, "Someone please tell me what the hell I'm looking at?" Arcus, 10-187. I've been pushing through the void for weeks. Maybe longer. Endless bodies and discarded realms as far as the eye can see. It seems a lot worse than any version of Bara's story I've read, and the constant feeling of dread is overwhelming. I'm starting to doubt anyone ever escaped this place. Arcus, 732. A lawyer offers Dwight millions to settle with the company. He tells them he'll settle if he gets a letter of apology for hiring and enabling a known abuser. They scoff at the request. They would rather give millions of dollars than apologize. Dwight turns down the offer, and I must admit this is something I didn't expect from him. But then again, so many characters I've studied over the years have, to one degree or another, contradicted my initial impression of them. I guess that's what makes them human, the contradictions. Dwight probably should have just taken the money and ran. That way he wouldn't have had to endure all those menial jobs throughout his life. But then again, there would be no elephant incident at the zoo. Nor would there be the coyote incident when he worked as a roadkill collector. Or even the incident driving the limousine across the country for that metal band. Come to think of it, I'm glad Dwight didn't take the money. I have found his memories amusing, if not entertaining. Arcus, 10202. I entered the most peculiar realm yet. A purged realm with people dressed in cardboard boxes living in homes made of rotten candy and putrefying junk food. It had Zezeltrix written all over it. I kicked down a moldy gingerbread house, and the structure instantly dissipated into a swirl of scintillating blue energy. I can't help but wonder where this mad designer comes from, and why I have found little about her in the stories. Her ability to manipulate this dimension and manifest anything that pops into her head suggests she comes from a highly advanced world, not unlike my own, possibly even more advanced. One thing is clear, Zezel understands the connection between thought and feeling to manifest reality. She has even found ways to hide secrets in the blood of her creations. She may even be one of the unknowns, who have hidden countless secrets throughout the realms. Arcus, 42. Those who are referred to as the Unknowns have journeyed through this old one, hiding secret knowledge within the realms in strange ways. It is said that this knowledge is hidden in the fog, in the buildings, and even in the blood of creatures. It's hard to make sense of what they mean. What is clear is the Unknowns seem to be able to travel throughout realms with relative ease. The ability to move between realms alone would be a secret worth having, even if I would have to skin one of those horrific creatures lurking around in the fog. The Magnificent Maurice, 2. I ended up in a peculiar circumstance. Somehow I found myself in a collapsing barn, locked in a stable covered in rotten hay. I shared the stable with several other horses, some crazy pigs and dogs. I was to be the till horse, but I was still too young, and my legs just weren't ready for that kind of work. The farmer used to strap me to this cold metal contraption that dug into my skin, and I'd pull or get beaten or have the dogs unleashed on me. Well, that wasn't so fair. And one dog got real smart with Roy, an old horse with the best jokes you ever heard. And Roy kicked that dog right in the teeth. Shattered them so he couldn't use them against me or any other animal. Even broke his neck bones. Farmer Joe whipped Roy until his arm got tired, and Joe collapsed on account of all the shine he had been guzzling down. Farmer Joe got into a rhubarb over everything, and we all got our share of thrashings. Mean, no-good buckethead, that one. But he got a taste of his own medicine in the end. I was watching the whole thing from a crack in the stable. All I remember is seeing Joe thrashing my friend Betty and screaming at the dogs to help him give her pain. She was tired and cold, and I was thinking that the dogs shouldn't go after Betty, but Joe. And the funny thing was, after I thought that, the dogs did nothing. Absolutely nothing. And he was getting more and more upset. Then he turns his whip on the dogs, and then I did it. I wished one of them dogs would just teach him a lesson. Before I knew what was what, one of the dogs turns on Farmer Joe and bites his leg and rips out a good meaty chunk of flesh. Now Joe yells and shrieks and tries to stand, but the dogs surrounded him and pounced. And the yells and shrieks turned to gurgles, and the gurgles soon turned to silence. Then one of them dogs comes and frees us all. As I made my way outside, I heard a series of gunshots and yelps. Suddenly, all the animals went off in every direction, to the dirt road, to the meadow, to the river, and I galloped off to the forest. I rushed through trees and bramble, and only stopped when I felt I was being followed. That's when I turned to see a litter of pups following me. I told them to scram and go find their mommy. I shooed them away and continued through pools of shadow and light. But every time I glanced back, there they were, stumbling over bushes, logs, or trying to hide from my angry gaze. I told them to quit following me. That was that. Saga of the Redcrane, Secrets of the Unknown. Saku whispered words of caution to Maurice as they rode through the cobblestone streets of a medieval village. An incandescent red moon hung boldly in the sky, casting an eerie glow over clusters of crumbling stone homes. Small cooking fires flickered throughout the village, with pots of blood boiling in the dark. Crimson blood and other fluids drained from a heap of bodies, stacked up and left to ferment. In the piles, she recognized several members of the Black Serpent clan, ripped and mangled and half devoured by maggots, chewed and rotting remnants of men and women, just like she had read in one of the tomes. This was the place. This was definitely the place. Black Serpent disciples had come here searching for the hidden secrets of the unknowns to transcribe to their scrolls, and they had somehow met their demise at the claws of fanged creatures she didn't want to think about. Vampires. She despised vampires, all manifestations of them throughout the countless realms. Now Saku nudged Maurice to slow down as they searched the village for signs or symbols left behind by the unknowns. Secret symbols she had read about in one of the many tomes she had salvaged from the abandoned towers. From these collected stories, she had been able to learn many secrets about this strange and horrific dimension in which she had been trapped and was trying desperately to escape. She had read the stories, the memories, and the annotations, and she was sure this was the village of the vampires, where the unknowns had hidden secret knowledge on how to manipulate the fog. "Be wary of vampires," Saku whispered. "Vampires?" Maurice questioned. "What do you mean, vampires? You didn't tell me there would be vampires. Are we talking the ones more like people, or are we talking the ones more like giant bats?" "The ones more like beasts. Beasts with wings." "Jeez, we're in a rhubarb now. I hate..." A sudden shriek interrupted his words as massive winged creatures with glinting razor-sharp teeth came hurtling at them from the shadows. In a blinding blur of speed, Saku leapt into the sky, her blade gleaming as she sent claws, limbs, and heads tumbling to the ground. When she landed, she didn't have time to think. She didn't even have time to breathe. Deadly claws swished over her head as she evaded wild attacks and countered with strategic swipes that left her assailants in pieces. Then she turned to see Maurice kicking and charging a vampire twice his size. Instantly, she charged toward them as the last remaining vampire smashed Maurice against a stone wall. The vampire hissed at Maurice and then suddenly turned to face Saku with its glowing red eyes. Saku slowed to a stride. Her eyes held the glare of the vampire as it tried to intimidate her with a roar, but with a flash of her blade, the roar was choked with a vicious thrust of cold steel. Blood gushed out like a geyser as the vampire collapsed to the ground, clutching its throat. Saku shook droplets of blood off her katana as she watched the vampire issue its last breath. Then she looked around the village, wondering where the unknowns may have hidden their secrets. She didn't see any markings. She had no idea. But she knew that they hid knowledge in so many different ways, it was hard, if not impossible, to keep track. It was at that moment Saku had an inspiration. and remembered a detail from one of the stories she had read. Squatting, she used her blade to flay the skin off the vampire's arm, and though she expected to see luminous symbols in the fat and flesh, she saw nothing. With a sigh, she stood to peer at a cluster of homes in the thickening fog. Maurice came up beside her and was just about to speak when she lifted a silencing finger. She could sense something was amiss. Gazing ahead, she listened to sounds only her keen ears could have caught. The scraping of claws on stone, the faint chattering of teeth, the rattle of a stone under a foot, and the murmurings of vampires communicating in their strange language. Taking a small step forward, she realized the first attack had just been a test. Instinctively, Saku held her katana at the ready as she looked deep into the shadows. When she lowered her gaze, the vampires attacked, but not fast enough.